Keyshawn, I'm going to start with you. What in the name of Rocky Balboa happened to the Philadelphia Eagles? How did they go from 10-1 to 11-7?
Well, first you start off by they fell apart, right?
Yep.
You talked about 10-1 in the month of November, then 6-7 on the losing side down the stretch, 6 or 7, but then bad coaching decisions. Let's not look at so we start with the coaching. Decision making. You take Sean Desai and you say, oh, well, I'm going to, as you call him, Mr. Pencil.
Coach Pencil.
Coach Pencil. In the middle of the season, Matt Patricia is going to take over the defense because we're not getting what we need out of defense a year ago that we were getting with Gannon as our defensive coordinator. You don't know what you're doing. Yep. Even though I didn't allow, or the organization didn't allow you to bring in some of your people that could teach what you want to do from a defensive side. They said, no, let's stick with what we already have. Yep. So you start there. Then you try and plug in some holes with some players via trade, signing free agencies. You bring in Shaq Leonard. That didn't obviously go as well as planned, but that's toward the end of the year. Kevin Byard, you bring him in. It didn't necessarily you didn't get what you wanted out of him this season, not to say moving forward that you won't. Now you start to think about it and you look at it. I believe they stopped listening to Nick Sirianni, meaning the players stopped paying attention to his coaching style.
Tuned him out.
You know, kind of like just tuned him out and said, you know what, we're going to try to do this because you have me operating differently at Jalen Hurts at the quarterback position than I was a year ago. And so now when you start to look at those sort of things, it's one big pot. The coaching staff, the players responding to the coaching staff, and Nick Sirianni making changes in the middle of the year that he probably shouldn't have made. What you do then on the defensive side is you let him make the necessary adjustments that he needs to make as a defensive coordinator and see how that goes. Not all of a sudden throw in the towel on him in the middle of you might as well just fire the dude. You don't demote somebody and keep them on staff.
I'd never heard of that before.
You never heard it, and it never works. Demoting a guy while he's still on staff, it just never works. Firing him and hiring somebody else, that may work. But when you have him on staff, the defenses, they're like, well, wait a minute. I learned all this under my defensive coordinator last year. Now, all of a sudden, I'm learning something different with Sean. Now, Matt Patricia's teaching me something different. So in a matter of about 11 months, I got 3 different defenses in my damn mind. I don't know which call is which. I'm trying to learn. It sounds similar to what Gannon did. Oh, now Matt Patricia's telling me to do this. It's a lot of confusion going on in Philadelphia. On top of that, the Philadelphia fans, the faithful, as you know, they're passionate about their sports.
I believe the most passionate.
Yes. Yeah. A little rude, but I like it. A little rude, but I like it. If they get loud, all of a sudden, you got Jeff Lurie, the owner of the team, having to listen to that. They pay attention to the fan base in Philadelphia sports. Philadelphia sports fans have a lot to say. Those sports talk radio shows.
WIP.
I don't know that, but I just know those shows. They speak loudly and even louder, and that resonates with the owner.
As we are speaking, they are speaking loudly.
They're going crazy right now. And so players hear that too. So now the players respond to that by, okay, my coach may be gone. Even though they may not publicly say it, they feel it. And then when you feel things like that, you kind of just be like, damn, what are we going to do? And as things fall apart, now you got to give a lot of credit to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers if this is just about last night. Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans and Godwin and company, they came to play. Defensively, they had no answers for the pressure. Okay, they knew exactly. Todd Bowles said, okay, Jalen Hurts has struggled here with blitzes. He can't get rid of the football fast enough. All we got to do in pressure situations is bring the house. And they did it on a number of occasions. And you can see where Philadelphia guys, now Devontae Smith certainly tried his best, but he was out there basically as the Lone Ranger in the passing game. And this is what happened. You get sent home with an L.
Do you? Quick thought on Matt Patricia. He should drop to his knees every night before he goes to sleep and thank God for Bill Belichick. Because if he had not coached as Coach Pencil under Belichick, I don't know what would have become of him, but
I originally had that in my comment in my mind, but I was like, I ain't even gonna bring it up.
Okay, but what has he ever actually done? Because Belichick coordinates the defense. He or his son were, especially in the Coach Pencil days, Bill's calling defenses. He's the strategist. It's all him. It's just,
of course.
He is obviously, you can make a case he's the greatest defensive mind ever. We're about to talk about him getting another head coaching job in a few minutes here on the show. But all of a sudden, Matt Patricia bounces and bounces, and you see what's happened with Dan Campbell after the train wreck that was the Matt Patricia Lions.
Interesting, right?
Yeah.
That Matt Patricia was in Detroit.
Yep.
And now Detroit is looking
at him now.
A second home game. It's interesting in a couple years.
Yeah, okay. Now back to the Eagles. To continue my Cowboy theme, we were clearly a product of their collapse because they had us dead to rights, man. When they're 10-1, you guys are all telling me you're done in the division because we were done unless they were done. And all of a sudden, right on schedule, they fell on their face masks. Okay, so allow me to do this. You guys were all over me yesterday telling me you told me so. You told me so. You made a special trip into the show yesterday to tell me so and tell Michael Irvin so. And Richard Sherman's all over me yesterday. You told me so. You told me so. Okay, I got it. Now, allow me a turn here because I told you so about the Eagles' defense from day one of this show this year. I told you it was way overrated because I thought it was overrated down the stretch last year. And if Brock Purdy had not gotten hurt on the first series of the NFC Championship game in Philadelphia, I do not believe the Eagles would have advanced to the Super Bowl. And they played
that may be true.
Yeah, and they played great in the Super Bowl, and Jalen played great. That was their apex. That was the best you'll ever see of Nick Sirianni's Philadelphia Eagles was during that Super Bowl last year. And if Jalen doesn't lose the football, I don't know what he was doing. He just lost his mind for a second in the scoop and score. If you eliminate that play, a very uncharacteristic mistake by Jalen, they just might win the game because Mahomes was having a hard time in the game. He threw for 182 against a defense that I thought was very torchable and was torchable all year. Okay, so as they rose to 10-1, I sat right here and told you and Richard, I don't believe in them. I don't trust their defense because even the last 4 games that they did win, remember, they trailed at halftime and they got outgained in all 4 of those wins. And they were living on the edge, on borrowed time, edge of the cliff. And Jalen kept saving them. But Jalen does tend to get beat up as the season wears on because it wears on him hard. Because he does run with the football. He will try to run through some people. He will take a lot of shots. And I thought down the stretch this year, he would just beat all to hell. And then last night he had the middle finger that was jerked out of socket. And he had his knee. And Troy Aikman was last night on telecast was speculating that something's going on with his knee that's much worse than he was letting on. And maybe now that it's over, 1, 2, 3 Cancun, maybe he'll get it cleaned up. Well, he just might because he did not look himself last night. I didn't think he looked himself for quite a while. So if you lose the essence of your playmaker, your leader and your playmaker, the guy that you trust to save you, if he can't save you enough on offense, and then last night, of course, if you lose A.J. Brown, you're going to have big offensive issues. And guess what they were? They went 0 for 9 on 3rd down last night. 0 for 9? They went 0 for 2 on 4th down. So, Keyshawn, they go 0 for 11 on all the crucial downs, the 3rd and 4th downs in the game. But what do you think the score is going to be? It should have been worse than 32-9, but Baker's receivers dropped 5 passes in the first half when it looked like they were home for the holiday.
I thought it was, again, I thought it was coaching mistakes. You mentioned 0 for 9 on 4th down. Well, part of it contributed. 3rd and 4th, yeah. 3rd and 4th down. Part of that contributions to that is not kicking the field goal. Take the 3. Yeah. It's hard. I understand 12 minutes left in the game. You decide 4th and 5, we don't have a shot. That's not true. You got a whole quarter to make up the difference. If you kick the field goal, it put 3 points on the board. You now you force the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and this is a Nick Sirianni coaching mistake, in my opinion. You now force Tampa Bay to do something different because they're looking at the score and they're saying to themselves, okay, well, they're only down by this much, so now we got to call the game differently. Opposed to, that 3 being erased because you went for it on 4th and 5, you have now shifted that momentum back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because they feel like, okay, we stopped them. We rolling. Our defense is rolling. But I can guarantee you, if you put that 3 on the board and that number is now 12 opposed to 9, the thought process is different on the sidelines.
Okay.
It just is.
Okay, but I'm still going to tell you that the final tally of yardage last night, Tampa Bay rolled up 426 yards to only 276 for Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So you can just see the yardage screams wipe out, blowout.
That may be true, Skip, but if you are coaching a certain way and you're putting points on the board in the playoffs, you cannot afford to not put points on the board. Okay, you put those points on the board. The coaching staff in Tampa Bay and Todd Bowles and them are thinking different.
Yeah.
They just are. Now you flip the field because of the kickoff. Now you flip the field. Opposed to saying to yourself, okay, if we stop them here while we're backed up at the 30-yard line, 20-yard line, they're going to punt the ball. We're going to get the football at the 40, opposed to kicking off and getting it pinned down deep into 25, where you got the football down at the 30 and 3 and out. You get the ball back midfield. You ain't cooking business.
Okay.
But they didn't think that way.
Okay, but in the end, you're stuck with a defense that fell all the way to 30th in the NFL in points allowed. That's horrendous. You're not going anywhere with a defense that gives up the 30th most points, and they were 31st.
Unless you're scoring 50 a game.
You better, and Jalen's not that guy. He's not a 50-point scorer. He can make key plays, but he can't go Mahomes on you or Josh Allen on you, right? Okay, so they were 31st in stopping opponents' third down conversions. Well, that's a recipe for disaster. And I kept hearing about big plays, Slay, and Bradbury. They can't cover anybody. They don't cover anybody.
To him. Last year, both of them, I believe, made all Pro Bowls or whatever the case is.
I watch, and they don't cover anybody. I see people running free everywhere. And then you guys were all over it. They added Kevin Byard. Well, he used to be Kevin Byard, but there was a reason that Tennessee said, you know what, we're out.
Well, Tennessee, first of all, they need a coach. Yeah. So, and I like Vrabel, but they need a coach. So moving on from A.J. Brown and moving on from him, they've made some personnel mistakes along the way.
Kevin Byard did not change life in Philadelphia.
Well, he didn't change it at the level that they probably hoped and thought when they acquired him.
All right. And then there was Shaq Leonard. And you guys are all over me, but Dallas should have signed him. And maybe we should have.
I still believe Dallas should have signed him.
All right. I just think that Indy said he's washed. He's gone through 2 back surgeries, and he's not remotely what he used to be because he was a healthy scratch in the last game that he played for Indy, quote unquote. So my point is, I just didn't see how he was going to change life, and he didn't change their life in Philadelphia.
Well, they got more issues. Okay. They got Fletcher Cox is old. I mean, they got more issues than Shaq Leonard.
Going into the year, you looked at them on paper, but they can't play to paper because they're older. Yeah. They're not what they used to be. And also, there's something about the Super Bowl loser syndrome that just wears you out mentally, where it's hard to get back. It's hard to get going again. You didn't lose the Super Bowl, but it just seems like year after year, the team that gets right to the precipice and then gets left at the altar, it can't dredge it back up because they think, God, it was so hard to get there. Yeah. Now we got to try to get there again so we can actually win the thing this time. And it's too much. The tension just builds all year. Like, can we get back? Can we get back? Because your fandom expects you to get back, and you're not good enough to get back a second time around. And then,
well, when you're successful, Skip, things start to happen in the offseason. You lose coaches.
You do.
You lose players.
And obviously, they lost both their coordinators.
Yeah, you lose 2 coordinators. Right. So that's a big miss.
It was a big miss and a big loss. All right. And then they go and get Julio. And you said, well, you guys could have used Julio. He's just at the end, and he got rocked last night. I don't know what happened, but he took a shoulder shot.
Didn't feel good. I felt bad for him.
I know. I felt bad for him, but he was in concussion protocol and didn't really get hit. He just got rocked shoulder to shoulder, and he got smashed.
No, he got hit pretty good.
He did.
To be a big boy like that. But, look, he's an older player. This was a plug for them at the 3rd or 4th receiver spot. I don't fault them at all for acquiring him and signing him. I thought the Dallas Cowboys needed a big body. Ferguson finally started showing up for them at the tight end position. because before all they had was CeeDee Lamb.
Yep.
Cook eventually started to kind of come along at times, but you needed a big body presence, and that's when the tight end emerged.
Michael Gallup showed up against Green Bay when it didn't matter. He had like 110 yards, but
did he?
Yeah, but it didn't matter.
I didn't even notice.
Well, that's touche. You got me. All right, and then finally, it was announced officially today, Jason Kelce is finished.
Yeah.
God bless him. He had a great career.
13-year run.
13-year run, and he was at the top of his profession, and he was the driving force, along with Jalen, for the most unstoppable play I've ever seen in the history of your game.
Yeah,
the tush push. I've never seen anything like it. Until last night, it got stymied. Until last night, the Buccaneers figured out how to get a little lower than Jason Kelce because they were getting people underneath him on that play, and they thwarted it, and I couldn't believe it because it actually sent a signal that the Buccaneers they're here. They're coming tonight.
Well, you got a defensive-minded coach, and you saw the way their defense played, and I'm sure they studied every single tush-push snap. Every one. However many times they've run it over the last year or so, yeah. I'm sure Ty Bowles and company has studied it to a point where here's what's going to happen, here's what we need to do, and they did it. You know, they did it. What can you say?
If you let Jason and those two guards get up underneath you and get leverage on you and just lift you out of the hole, and Jalen is so strong, lower body, it was unstoppable because it wasn't just that you couldn't stop it. You couldn't stop it from getting 3 or 4 yards.
Yeah, and they were able to do it. And, you know, it's at some point, though, you go to something so many times, you go to the well so many times, eventually somebody's going to catch you.
In this league, they will figure you out.
They'll figure it out.
It may take a while.
So that's why you have to now have something to counter that.
Yeah.
Where was the pass potentially off of that or something along those lines?
Okay. So Jason Kelce was sort of part and parcel of this decline because he was winding down, and that there are a lot of members of that team who had glorious pasts who are winding down. It's an aging football team that looked on paper like
at the interior positions. It is aging.
It's just aging. All right.
It happens.
It happens, and they lose 6 of their last 7, and all of a sudden, last year's Super Bowl coach Nick Sirianni is on the hottest of seats. It's about as hot as Mike McCarthy's seat.
Well, you know, Philadelphia they don't mind moving on. They moved on from Andy Reid, who was there for many times, and they hired Chip Kelly. They said to Chip Kelly, bye-bye. Then Doug Peterson, one of their own, he won the Super Bowl for them. They said, you know what, this isn't work for us. Move on. I'm not shocked or surprised that the noise is loud in Philadelphia, and Nick Sirianni is fielding questions about his potential job security. Yeah. Not surprised at all.
One thing about that owner in Philadelphia, Jeffrey Lurie, he will move on something. He will plunge. He will just say, nope, I've seen enough. Howie Roseman, their GM, nope, we've seen enough. And they are much quicker to act, maybe for better or for worse, than Jerry Jones is. Jerry will take his time. Jerry's not a plunger.
But they've had more success recently than you have.
Hey, yeah.
You know, but they've been to 3 Super Bowls since Dallas' last Super Bowl. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
1 with Andy, 1 with Doug, and 1 with Nick.
That is correct. They've been to 3. They've had much more success than Jerry has had.
So you can't argue that.
No, I can't argue that. But year after year, I look at my team on paper, and I think my team is better than they are. And then they have had more success with their rosters than we have had with ours.
True.
But I still say...
But I think they hire the right coaches. And I was telling somebody this, it might have been Michael. I just think that they hire the right coaches where the Dallas Cowboys coaches that they've hired in the past, except Big Bill, everybody else is kind of just guys, right?
Well,
meaning personality-wise.
Well, you can argue
Wade Phillips, great personality, but not a in-your-face, demanding coach. Then they stuck with Jason Garrett again. How'd he do? How you doing? Shake your hand guy kind of guy.
Correct.
You know, nice Princeton. I went to Ivy League school.
I know him well.
And now you look at the situation in Mike McCarthy, who is not, you know, he just, I don't know. He's just a different personality.
He's just a guy.
I think the Cowboys, and we'll talk about this, if they're going to make a change, they've got to get a stern person in there that's not going to stand and put up with Jerry or the players. That's what I believe.
Okay. Does Philly need the same guy? Because Nick Sirianni seemed like a really nice, happy-go-lucky guy who loves his players. All he wanted to talk about last night is they're hurting in that locker room. I don't want to talk about me. I want to talk about them.
Yeah, but you got to look at the coaching staff and the personality that fits that particular region. Does he fit the Philadelphia Eagle fan base? Andy Reid, he felt like, to me, he was perfect for Philadelphia. Then Doug, I don't know what happened with Doug in the front office or whatever, but Doug understood the fabric of Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So it made perfect sense. I don't necessarily, it feels like to me, Nick puts on an act to fall in line
I think so
with the
too.
personalities of Philadelphia opposed to authentic.
Yeah. All right, sum it up. Bigger mess, Cowboys or Eagles right now?
Bigger mess?
Yeah.
Cowboys.
Cowboys bigger mess?
Yeah, Cowboys bigger mess.
Cowboys got younger talent than the Eagles.
But the Eagles aren't a big mess because they are in a reset mode where the Cowboys are not in a reset mode, but it's a mess because you got your, well, we'll get into it.
All right.
I don't want to give it all away.
All right. Speaking of that, Jerry Jones. Why haven't you fired Mike McCarthy yet? I'm waiting. The clock is ticking. We discuss next.
No mercy, no mercy, no mercy.
Thanks for watching, Undisputed fans. Do you want more highlights from the show? Make sure to click that subscribe button for all the exclusive content from Undisputed.